On February 23rd, 1836, the same day he arrived in Bear, Generalissimo Antonio Lopez de Santana dispatched a courier to demand the Alamo garrison's surrender. Travis replied with a cannonball. There could be no mistaking such a concise response. Santana retorted by hoisting a red flag of no quarter atop the bell tower of San Fernando Church. Centralist artillerymen then planted their batteries and directed their fire against the fort. Once the heavy pounding breached the walls, those inside would have to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Bottled up, the defenders had only one hope, that Texian reinforcements would break the siege. On the second day of the siege, February 24th, Travis assumed full command when Colonel James Bowie fell victim to a mysterious malady variously described as hasty consumption or typhoid pneumonia. As commander, Travis penned his celebrated letter to the people of Texas and all Americans in the world, in which he recounted that the fort had sustained a continual bombardment and cannonade for 24 hours. He pledged that he would never surrender or retreat, and swore victory or death. The predominant message, however, was an entreaty for help.
I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism, and everything dear to American character to come to our aid with all dispatch.
Far from being bent on self-sacrifice, Travis and his men honestly believed that they could hold the fort, at least until reinforcements arrived. That had, after all, always been the strategy. A few responded to his entreaties. On March 1st, 32 troops attached to Lieutenant George C. Kimball's Gonzales Ranging Company made their way through the enemy cordon and into the compound. The irrepressible David Crockett celebrated their arrival by serenading the garrison with his fiddle. Scotsman John McGregor joined in on his bagpipes. In one of his letters to Houston, Travis described how
the Honorable David Crockett was seen at all points animating the men to their duty.
Even the stricken Bowie had his cot brought out in the open, where he encouraged the men from his sickbed. Morale remained high, and Travis was grateful for the Gonzales reinforcements. But he knew they would not be enough. He needed more. Yet days dragged by, and no more help arrived. The Centralists continued their cannonading, and the defenders observed that the enemy artillery edged ever closer to the walls. Travis could not imagine why Fannin and his 400 men had not arrived. It had been 9 days since he and Bowie had summoned him, plenty of time for the 95-mile journey. The Alamo commander knew that his couriers were getting through enemy lines. Why were the people of Texas and all Americans in the world paying his letters no heed? And where was General Houston? With the collapse of the provisional government, he held no official authority. But Texians had scheduled a new convention to meet at the town of Washington on the Brazos River to create a permanent government and, Travis hoped, declare independence from Mexico once and for all. Predictably, Houston rushed there to confirm his position. While he and the other Texian politicos dithered, Santana's cannonballs hammered the walls of the Alamo. Travis and his men would have to fend as best they could. By March 30th, determination and defiance, this February 24th letter, had begun to give way to anger and despair. Travis wrote to the Washington delegates that he had lost all faith in Colonel Fannin.
I look to the colonies for aid. Unless it arrives soon, I shall have to fight the enemy on his own terms.
He grew increasingly bitter that his fellow Texians seemed blind to his plight. In a letter to a friend, Travis revealed his frustration.
If my countrymen do not rally to my relief, I am determined to perish in the defense of this place, and my bones shall reproach my country for her neglect.
Why did Texian leaders ignore Travis's repeated calls for assistance? Modern Texans dislike admitting it, but the provisional government that should have and could have organized relief efforts had fallen apart because of its bickering, dissension, and discord. When the Washington delegates finally assembled to organize a permanent government, they did not have sufficient time or resources to rescue the men trapped inside the Alamo. Having received pledges that every possible effort is making to strengthen, supply, and provision the garrison, Travis found it difficult to accept that his superiors had placed him and his men in harm's way, only to forsake them through sheer ineptness. Had he lived longer, the 26-year-old Travis might have learned to place less trust in the promises of politicians. The worsening situation wholly justified Travis's melancholy. Constant pounding had weakened the walls. By day 11 of the siege, Centralist engineers had planted a battery within musket shot of the north wall. At that range, they did not require heavy siege guns. Each shot bashed and battered until the wall was on the verge of collapse. Green Jameson, the Kentucky lawyer turned Alamo engineer, directed work parties throughout the night, buttressing the wall with odd pieces of timber. But both he and Travis realized that this was only a stopgap measure. In the event of a determined assault, the north wall could not hold. On Friday, March 4th, day 11 of the siege, Santana called a council of war and announced a pre-dawn assault for the following Sunday. This sudden declaration stunned his officers. The enemy's walls were crumbling. No Texian relief column had appeared. When the provisions ran out, surrender would remain the rebels' only option. There was simply no military justification for the costly attack on a stronghold bristling with artillery. But ignoring these reasonable objections, Santana stubbornly insisted on storming the Alamo. His Excellency's attack order of Saturday, March 5th, scheduled the onslaught for 5 o'clock the following morning. The Centralist cannon fell silent toward the end of the day. Santana hoped the weary rebels would take advantage of the lull to catch up on their sleep. If his soldados approached silently under the cover of darkness, they might be over the walls before the bleary-eyed defenders reached their post. The plan worked. For 12 days, the Alamo garrison had endured almost constant bombardment. Now, near the end of their tether, they collapsed in exhausted heaps. Travis posted a few picket guards, but they too seemed to have nodded on. All was silent inside the compound as the stroke of midnight heralded day 13 of the siege, March 6, 1836.